Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I'm Bill, the company's expert. And this is a live Q&A, live stream that I do every week around this time, where I just answer questions. So if you have been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you should be able to get into the chat box and ask me questions, whatever you're wondering about, whatever you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. That's what this is all about. And this is episode number 152 of How to Get Hired, live stream about careers, job interviews, and success. That's right. It's just that specific. We're talking about success. As always, a shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome. And same with my Patreons. You guys are awesome too. And my super thanks donors. Those are always nice to get. You guys are awesome. You know who you are. And also to you, my viewers and participants, you guys are awesome. As I say, if you are a subscriber, in order to post comments and stuff, you need to be able to be subscribed to my channel. I think it's like a week. You have to be subscribed for a week or something to be able to post comments in there. Yeah, so this doesn't have a specific title. This is just all about jobs and careers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. There's so much in there. I mean, you know, we've talked about like all the common job interview questions, things like tell me about yourself, things like, you know, what are your salary expectations? Why should we hire you? What are your weaknesses? Why did you leave your last job? You know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? All those like standard questions. We've talked about all those before. We could certainly get into that stuff again. Other areas are that right now, there's a kind of a change that's happening these days, and it's a change that's triggered by all the AI stuff. But the effect is that a lot of posted jobs are kind of dwindling. Like there's kind of the same amount of jobs, just they're posting less in the posted job market, and you know they're instead like on the hidden job market. That's where 80% of the jobs traditionally are, and will always be, in the foreseeable future. So we're seeing even more of that, right? That the shift is kind of happening towards that. And that's, as my understanding is, that's been triggered by a lot of these services that what they'll do is they'll apply for you. So you can go to a website, you can sign up, and you put in your resume and you put in your cover letter and all that kind of stuff. And then it sort of automates it. It takes your resume and it takes your information, and then it just applies through automation to tons and tons of roles and things that are posted, and it's an interesting effect because what's happening is the jobs that are posted, they're getting inundated with all this, right? So it's great that you're being put forward for all these jobs, but then at the same time, you're going in with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people. So statistically, your odds kind of, go down a bit for getting selected for that job. So they can be a lot more picky, right? That's the idea. So that's the perpetual game of cat and mouse. Most job seekers that have been around for at least 10 years, they know that most jobs are not posted, and you get them by reaching out to employers. So that's kind of the way that works. So if you have any questions about any of this, we could get into it. How job interviews work, what employers are looking for. That's a big one. Whatever you guys are struggling with, that kind of thing. This is a Q&A, so while we're waiting for the questions to roll on in. And also, as you can see, which is blatantly obvious, like a big slap in the face, I've got 3 courses that you could check out. So I'm going to just briefly mention those while we're waiting for the first questions to roll on in. The most popular, of course, is this one. Let's see if I can orientate myself right here. That one, as I bump my mic. My Get Hired course. That's the mainstay of a lot of this stuff. It's how to get hired. All my advice, all in one place, and it's geared to introverts, and it teaches you 2 things: 1, how to get hired in the posted job market, and 2, how to get hired in the hidden job market. The big gem of that course is learning about the hidden job market. If this is something you've never done before, it might be something really eye-opening for you. That's how most people get hired. So that's where all the jobs are. And the great thing about it is not just that the good jobs all happen to be there, but the fact that, there's much more jobs there than there is in the posted market. And the added bonus, the cherry on top of the sundae, is that you have substantially less competition for those jobs. So it's like a win-win-win. So I highly recommend that you look in that direction. You learn all you can about that, and that's where you're looking. So whether you learn that with me or with somebody else, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're tuned into that, that's where a lot of the good jobs are. So yes, I think what I'm going to do in the next couple of weeks is I'm going to go back to actually titling the streams after a specific topic, like a certain job interview question or something. And then it gives me something to start out talking about while we're waiting for the questions to come in. I think that's probably the best way of doing it. But something that I want to do today, and we're going to do, is we're going to examine a few things here that may be of interest to people. I'm going to get out chatbot, and we're going to ask it questions, and I'm going to react to it. But we've got some questions. So McKinley 3 wins the award for the first person in the chat. So congratulations, McKinley. You're one in a million. Does it appear favorable when you have been hired back-to-back for 2 jobs and have been employed by both for over a year? Do you mean like at the same time, or you mean like one after the other? So the 2 of them were over a year, so 6 months each or something like that. You've been hired back-to-back for 2 jobs and have been employed by both for over a year. Does it convey to recruiters that you are a desirable candidate? You mean like you worked for 1 year in one job and then were immediately hired by another employer in another job, and each job you stayed in for a year? Is that maybe what I'm understanding? Listen, the answer to each permutation of this question is it depends. For some employers, that will carry a lot of weight. For others, it won't matter at all. The general rule is that they don't like, or they're biased against candidates who are currently unemployed and have been unemployed for a while, right? That's the general rule. The reasoning is that, you see, if you're unemployed, that suggests that nobody's hiring you, nobody wants you. Obviously, that's a huge stretch to conclude that. There could be many other reasons, but that's one possibility. And the thing is that if that's the case, where you've been trying to get a job and nobody's hiring you, they think that, oh, there could be a reason for that. Maybe there's something about you, maybe some risk factor or some point from your past that's a liability, that's a problem, right? And so rather than just try and get to know you and figure out what it is, they just lump you into the category that says higher risk employee, right? Now, if you've had 2 back-to-back jobs, you haven't had a period of, like a current work gap, you haven't had a period of unemployment right now, between your last job and right now, then you don't fall into that category, right? You've been employed up till now or up until recently. And so that tends to suggest that there's no obvious red flags with you, right? So you've got that going for you. Is that the same thing as them looking upon you favorably and wanting to hire specifically you? No, but at least you don't fall into that category of, there's something might be really wrong with you. We should be cautious in considering you. Does that make sense? So I wouldn't say you're a desirable candidate, but you are a neutral candidate with no obvious red flags. That's what it suggests. McLovin says, getting the interviews in the first place is the hardest part. They just filter them out even if I can do the job. Yeah, exactly. And you know why that is? That's because you're looking in the posted job market where you've got hundreds and hundreds of applicants for each job, right? It's the supply far outstrips the demand in the posted job market. The posted job market is a tiny subset of the job market, right? And, when you're going in the front door with 700 candidates, the odds are that you're not going to be hired, like statistically, right? If you were up against 99 other candidates, right, you would have statistically a 1% chance of getting hired, right? So what that means that if all the other candidates were just as good as you're all about the same, it'd be almost like rolling a dice. You'd have a 1% chance of getting hired because you're up against 99 other people, right? Now, the reality is that when hundreds of candidates apply for a job, quite a few of them are qualified to do it, right? Like, according to the employer, not according to me, not according to you, not according to anyone else, but according to the employer, many of them are qualified usually, right? It's not like 700 people applied, only 4 were qualified. That's usually not what we see. We see 700 people applied, 200 for sure were qualified. They met the minimum standard according to the employer to do the job, right? So if you're fully qualified and you apply for the job and you don't get called back, it's not because, oh no, I'm not qualified enough, right? It's because of some other factor. That other factor could be, oh, I didn't apply in the first 10 minutes. Maybe they took the first 10 people that they looked at that were qualified and called them into interviews and then just cut it off, right? That's a real thing. It could be some other element of what you sent in, like in your application. Maybe you made a spelling mistake on your resume or something. I don't know. And they didn't like that, so that eliminated you. It's simply because they had an overabundance of people that were qualified. So you've got to then go to some secondary criteria or set of criteria to, pick like which ones you're going to bring in for an interview, right? It could have been like a personality thing. Like maybe, some people sent in a cover letter explaining how passionate they were about doing this work, talking about the company. I know the company does this work, that work, this work, that work. It's in the middle of this, in the middle of that. I think that's great because my skills tie in with it this way, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's what tipped the scales in their favor. And the recruiter or hiring manager decided to bring them in instead of you. It was not based on qualifications. It was based on like, okay, this person seems a bit more enthusiastic or passionate. So you never know. It could be any of this stuff. This is the problem when you've got hundreds of candidates all competing for one position, right? This is why I say, like, if you are looking in the hidden job market where the majority of the jobs are, and then you only have, instead of having 700 competitors, you've got 3 competitors, it works a little bit differently, That's why I highly encourage people to tune into that stuff. So that's why they're doing it. Unfortunately, the impression we all get when you apply for a job and you don't get selected is like, oh, you're saying I'm not qualified enough, right? Like that's what I'm reading into your actions, the fact that you did not select me and I didn't hear back. I'm going to interpret your action as you saying to me that I'm not qualified enough. That's the message we receive or that we interpret. That's actually usually not what's going on. Does that make sense? McKinley says one after the other, but okay, so this was the 2 jobs thing. One after the other, but been hired within 2 months from the other job. Okay, no problem. Well, what I said still stands in that instance, right? Tully Mars. It's good to get names that I can pronounce, or I think I can pronounce, put it that way. I read an article that states that people over 50 should shave off 10 years from the resume. Interesting idea. They should also shave off half of their hair on the left it was like the earring thing on the right or on the left ear. If one earring for a guy in a right ear means, you're over 50. The other one means you need to shave your head, that kind of thing. Interesting idea, but eventually a hiring manager will be able to figure it out sooner or later. Yes, or that's crap, and you should just be honest about yourself and not play this game. Go to people that actually are going to make a selection not on Mickey Mouse criteria, but on actually things that matter, and just deal with them. You could also do that, right? Meaning go deal with hiring managers directly and stop playing these ridiculous games. You nailed it. Oh, about the earring thing. Yeah, well, when it comes to fashion, everybody comes to me sooner or later, right? So that just, do you like what I did with this hair? I did this morning for you. I just want you to know that. You don't seem to be complimenting me as much as I would like, so I just have to kind of check on that. Comment to Rise UO the channel. Thanks, man. Okay. I don't know what that means, but I think it's well meant, so you're welcome. Thank you. Tully Mars, it's not a stupid question. I just want to make sure. I'm not ragging on you. Listen, there's a lot of BS like this floating around, and it's crap. What you do is you ignore all of it and you rise above it, and then you realize that no, things are actually based on real things that matter, not this manure, instead of what I would like to say. Talk to hiring managers directly, have a, not a job interview, but you have essentially an information interview, just a free-form chat about the industry, about their opinions on where the industry is going, about, what skills are needed, what traits and employees are good, what we're going to be needing going forward, all this kind of stuff. They can see that you know your stuff, you know what you're talking about. You can see that this person, this hiring manager, this boss is on the level. There's someone that, you agree with when it comes to their general approach. You both realize you guys click, Now, if they actually have a need for someone right now, you're in. They're not going to turn you down and go hire a stranger. They're going to hire you if they need someone, right? That's the idea. Okay, so that's based on more real stuff, not this dog and pony show type things. And the other thing that I don't like about shaving off 10 years idea is that you're lying. You're being dishonest. If I lie about who I am and say I'm somebody else, then they'll hire me. It's that usually doesn't work in the long run. Sometimes it does. Everything happens some of the time, but often, if that's the reason they're hiring you, it might not be the best place to work. It doesn't suggest that they're going to appreciate who you really are, right? Or that they're putting value on the right things. And even if it's just a recruiter, like a gatekeeper that's just off their rocker, they're out to lunch, and the reasoning is, okay, it's a good company once you get past this idiot gatekeeper that doesn't know how to evaluate people. The fact is, they still have that idiot gatekeeper doing their job. So that's an indirect signal that something might be off with them. Hardly scientific. It's just playing the odds, but that's why these things suggest that it's not usually a game you want to play. There are far more productive things you could be doing rather than playing this game. Tully says you should get a promo for whatever product you use on the hair. Oh, well, this alone is the promo for it. Once everybody sees this, once the Gen Zs and the whatever you call the younger generation, kids today, or whatever you call them, once they see this, I don't think I need to say anything else. It just sells itself. Tully says that's why you are the best. Well, thank you. I know. Thanks, Tully. You're awesome, and I like having you here in this chat. You're bringing a sparkle to my day, and you're helping this to go places rather than just having it be a very boring, slow-paced thing. So, thank you. Constantin says, so as long as you told before, I am what? I guess that's overqualified person. Please, any tips? Can't find a good job more than 6 months. Tips. Okay, well, overqualified, there's no such thing as being overqualified. That means you're just too good, right? Usually that's not a problem. People actually want you to be very good. The problem is that they use that word instead of a whole variety of things that they actually don't like about you. Either you're too old, or they assume you'll want too much money, or they assume you won't like this work, or they assume this or they assume that. And then instead of saying any of that stuff, they just say, oh, you're overqualified, because it's a very safe, legally and politically correct word that it's hard for people to find fault with you when you say that they're overqualified, right? But it's hiding the real reason why they rejected you. They are not telling you the real reason. Okay? So it's hard to go off overqualified. Like, it's hard to work backwards from that and then fix whatever the problem is, because it could mean a whole variety of different things, right? And it usually does. So if you want to know for sure if there's something you're doing that's causing you to bomb interviews, or it's causing you to not get interviews, that's where you work with a career coach. I'm not a career coach, but you go find a career coach, and even if you do one session with them, okay, they do a pretend interview with you. They see your interview, and then they give you feedback based on their professional opinion as a recruiter or whatever, and they recommend what you should work on and stuff like that. Now, the poor person's version of that is to do it with friends or family. Do a pretend interview, a mock interview with, your friend or your brother or, whoever that and, they can maybe be a bit more objective about you than you can be about yourself. Okay? So that's what you can do if the problem is your interview. If you're not getting interviews, okay, like if that's the problem, and people are saying, I'm sorry, you're overqualified, and they don't give you an interview, that's obviously a problem with your resume or your job application, right? In which case you would also go to a career coach, ones that work on your resume with you, right? Most career coaches help you with interviews, and they also help you with your resume and like how you do your resume. Okay, your resume has to be tailored to the job these days. You can't just do a one-size-fits-all resume. I mean, you can, but it gets very poor results, generally speaking. So you need to tailor your resume. Either you do it manually by hand, or you use it like AI to help you with that. Like things like ChatGPT are great for that. Okay, does that make sense? So depending on what the problem is, you'd go down these different fixes. So hopefully that helps. Tully says 2 interviews with 2 different companies in the next few days. One is a hidden job. The other is one from the job board. Okay, so it'll be quite different. If the hidden job, if it's like with recruiters and stuff like that, it's like a formal job interview, then that's not really a hidden job. They're doing it like it's a posted job. If it's really an interview for a hidden job, if it's the first one you're doing, then it would be a totally unstructured meeting. Or if it started like that and they're bringing you back again to talk to recruiters and doing it in a more formal way, then that makes sense. But that's good that you got some stuff lined up. Hopefully those will work out. Ballistic says, hey, I had an interview the other day. Sadly, I also had the flu. So I was feeling sick and not 100%. I hope that wasn't noticed by the interviewer. Listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person that's giving out medical advice, but the game I've had to play for most of my career, if you're a manager, was, with very, very few exceptions, sickness is not an option. You have to show up for something. You better be there. So that's where you get medications and stuff that like knock down all your symptoms and you can drag yourself in and do your job for like a day or whatever if it's important. So you might have to assume that role if that's not the way you're used to operating. You know what I mean? So I've had to, figure out what medications and stuff work for me, like for different things, so that you can still pull through most things. It's not always possible. I mean, if you're just bedridden because you can't function, that's one thing. But for like colds and, I don't feel good, whatever, you just knock down. As I said, I'm not giving advice. I'm just saying that's the game I've had to play because those are the demands on you. And this is an example of that. You got a job interview. You can try and like reschedule it. You can say, listen, I can come in, but I've got the flu, like I can medicate myself and come in if that's what you guys, if that's what you need to have happen. But if it's possible to schedule this without any real inconvenience on your part, I would prefer that. So is that a possibility? Something like that. If it's like a couple of days in advance, it might be possible to do that. So that's what I'd recommend trying if you have the luxury of time. That's a long shot. I'm not sure if that's possible. Tully says, been working full-time since 98. Back to the good old days, right? My issue is all of a sudden I have brain freeze during interviews. I take your advice with 10 stories. I'm doing better. Thank you. Okay, good. Yeah. It's just a matter of rehearsal, right? That helps. Listen, you're never going to be like 100% at ease, and have like an easy answer to every question. They intentionally structure these interviews so that they throw you off a little bit. That's what they go for, so don't feel too bad if like, one question or two might throw you off. That's perfectly normal. You're human, and especially when they're trying to do this, they can do it. Now, if that happens for every question, then you got a problem. I would say rehearse, right? Like you've been doing. Constantin says, thank you for the answer. They are not rejecting me, just don't have a job for my position. We are both understand this. Should I help of my brain to be more stupid? What? Sorry for taking time. You're not stupid, and you're not like wasting my time or anything. That I'm asking for questions, and you're giving me a question. So that's the thing. Listen, it's just that you just have to learn job search. There's a difference between having qualifications and capabilities and doing job search. They're two separate things. You could be a highly qualified person, highly knowledgeable, highly capable, but yet you don't understand how to look for a job. You don't know where the jobs are. You don't know what you have to do to get them. You know what I mean? They're two separate things. So it sounds like you've got some skills and some capabilities. That's good. But you're struggling with the whole, like, how do I get a job thing? How to do job search. Okay, so they're two separate things, right? So, like I said at the beginning of this live stream, I have a course that takes you through everything. It takes you through the posted job market, takes you through the hidden job market. Like in careful steps, with templates and all this kind of stuff. You could check that out if you're into that kind of thing, if that's what you're looking for. If not, I've got like 1,000 videos literally on my YouTube channel. There's more stuff there. And then going out from there, if you have a specific question, you can get some basic answers with things like ChatGPT. You just ask ChatGPT, like exactly what you ask me. We just ask it, and it'll give you an answer. Sometimes it's bang on. Other times, not so much. But if you ask follow-up questions and you drill into details, it's actually a pretty amazing tool. There's a lot of AI chatbots that can help, with very specific, very complex and nuanced individual questions. Anastasia says, hello, as a fresh university graduate, I'd love to hear any tips on how to appear significantly less nervous while trying to score an interview via phone calls? Thank you in advance, as always. Sure, yeah. Okay. So listen, practice makes perfect. Like, that's what it comes down to. Now, there's no real secret sauce. It's like, learn how to answer all the questions, right? Like, if you're talking specifically about a phone interview, like a screening interview, learn the answers to all the standard job interview questions, then get like 10 stories, like we kind of mentioned a moment ago. The way you answer behavioral questions is you prepare 10 stories from your past. You know, there's different types of stories in there: your wins, your fails, dealing with conflict with various people, dealing with creativity, you know, like stuff like this. You know, you get 10 stories that you vetted, that you've practiced telling in a very compact format, like the STAR format, right? And then you've rehearsed this stuff over and over again, and you've committed to memory. So when you go on a phone interview, you know all the questions backwards and forwards, right? And you know you've practiced this stuff, you've rehearsed it. Do mock interviews. That means you actually have to do preparation with another person, right? So hopefully you're doing that. The first phase is to like do preparation by yourself, figure out what the answers are, figure out what you're going to say, and then say it, you know, practice saying it to yourself like a bunch of times. Then work with somebody else. Simulate a real job interview or a real phone interview, whatever, and get them to ask you questions. Like, either they make up the questions or you give them a list of questions. This could be a friend or family member, you know, whatever. And then practice doing it. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. And that's good because it's simulating what the real thing is going to feel like. And like the thing I've always said is that if you do 3 or 4 of these a day, okay, so like friends or family members, whoever you have around, like a roommate, you know, whatever, 3 or 4 of these practice interviews a day, and you do that for 10 days. So that's 30 to 40 practice interviews. It's going to fundamentally change how you perform in a real phone interview, because you'll know all the questions backwards, forwards, you know, like they're all locked in here. You've said the answer so many times, it's automatic. And then you're used to being on the phone with somebody. You're used to doing an interview with somebody. You don't feel as awkward. You know, you feel a bit more natural, a bit more relaxed, right? So that's what you got to do. So phase 1, learn the answers, practice them with yourself. Phase 2, grab somebody else and do mock interviews, maybe 3 or 4 a day for 10 days. Bam, noticeable improvement, you know? And that's how you learn. And then as you get older, you know, you get better and better at this stuff because more practice, more experience. You tend to normalize it. It's like public speaking. It's like conversations with strangers. It's all the same thing. Practice makes perfect. So that's Anastasia, the Grand Duchess Anastasia. McKinley 3 says, what about trying to get back at a job that gave you an offer years ago and a few years later you try again? Any chances? Because even if you reached out letting them know they hired you back then. So you got the job, but then you left or something, and then you're coming back again? Like, you got the job, but then why are you applying again? Like, did you leave or they fired you or something like that? The general rule is that if somebody's passed on you once, it's highly likely they're going to pass on you again, right? And there's plenty more fish in the sea for 99% of people. So, you know, unless you're doing something extremely specialized, you know what I'm saying? It's better looking further afield. But in your case, you got the job. Why would you be applying again? And if you are applying again, why would you not simply go to your former boss there rather than going to a recruiter? So if you could let me know, I can maybe be more helpful with this. Tully says, the Zoom interview is so generic. I like to shake hands and make an impression. Any way to connect on Zoom that you recommend? Well, it's kind of like what we're doing here, like over YouTube live streaming. It's kind of like a Zoom call, right? obviously you can't shake their hands, but you can do everything else. You can do the greeting, and you could make chit chat and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's basically a version of the real thing. I don't have any specific tips to how to do a Zoom call other than just be familiar with the technology. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the problems with the video call for a job interview derives from, people not being comfortable with the technology, not understanding the technology, being very nervous because it's like, am I on? Can you hear me? That kind of thing, right? So master the technology, and then you'll feel more comfortable doing an interview. Then the only thing making you nervous will be like the interview, and not the interview plus this weird thing you got going to talk to them. You know what I mean? I'm not sure how helpful that was, but there really isn't, as far as I know, there really isn't any magic for these things. It just, but I agree with you. It is rather impersonal, especially when they turn off their camera, but they expect you to have yours on, but then they turn theirs off. That's just rude, But then again, that's like the hiring process for posted jobs, isn't it? It's like an exercise in humiliation a lot of times. Ballistic says, regarding my earlier post, I hate how my body failed me. I couldn't reschedule because they flew in for the interview. Oh, the sickness thing. Yeah. Yeah, that sucks. Listen, it says, any tips to handle rejection, not getting a job? Well, listen, for the first part, you're only human, my friend. Like, we get sick occasionally, and there's not much you can do about it. I mean, if you've done all the due diligence stuff, and apart from taking medication to get yourself to pull through, even though you're sick, you can still function. That's all you can do. You know what I'm saying? So don't beat yourself up too much. It's an act of God, And in my experience, some of these things that don't work out like that, usually it's a blessing in disguise. So just keep that in mind. Now, any tips to handle rejection or not getting the job? Oh, how much time do you have? First of all, just the stupidity of the situation for most people. You're out of work, right? Usually when you're looking for a job, not always, but usually. And already, your self-esteem, your self-confidence takes like a massive hit just because of that, right? You might have stresses and pressures on you because of your situation, So you're already like feeling this tall, right? Then, right when you're at kind of your lowest point in terms of like feeling good about yourself and feeling optimistic, right at that point, that's when most people have to endure the most rejection they're ever going to feel in their entire life, So that's just a magical combination, right? Really works wonders for your mental health. And if that isn't enough, while you're getting all this rejection, it's at that moment that you have to appear confident and optimistic and all this kind of stuff. So it's just like a perfect storm of misery, for a lot of people. And if that's what you're experiencing, congratulations, you're normal. That's the normal. I hate to say it, that's the normal job search experience. That's what everybody feels like in that situation, and everybody is usually in that situation in one form or another. So first of all, that's kind of the first step, to just realize that you're not alone. This is typical. Now, to go beyond that, it's like you have to manage your mental health. You know what I'm saying? Your mental health is important. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not what do you call it? Psychologist, psychiatrist. I'm not that kind of brain thinky type person that deals with the brain and how it thinks. But you got to take care of yourself. It's a real thing. You only realize this once you push yourself to the point where you want to jump off a bridge or something. It's temporary. That's the other thing. You have a distorted view of the world and of yourself because of this temporary situation you're in. it's going to end one way or another. It's going to end sooner than you think, and usually it ends very favorably. It's like this, it's miserable every day until one day it isn't, it just ends. So, that's the reality. The reason I can say this is because I'm older and I've been around the block a few times. And when I was younger, that was the pattern, And once you've been there a couple times at least, you recognize that pattern. You can start to predict it, right? The only thing that's practical that I would say is, number one, take care of your mental health. That means on a daily basis, force yourself to do something fun, something that you'll enjoy, something you normally would enjoy. Force yourself to do it, because then you start to feel better about things. Now, that isn't just like positivity or whatever. That's like an investment in you succeeding at this process. If you feel better about things, you're going to be able to do more work. You're going to be able to be more productive. Okay, so apart from feeling better, that's the other result. Okay, so force yourself to do something fun. Take care of yourself. And then learn all you can about job search. What a lot of people don't seem to realize is that there's a difference between having qualifications and capabilities and understanding how to get a job. They're two separate things. Just because you've got some talents and qualifications doesn't mean that you're going to be necessarily successful at getting a job. Getting a job, that's the sales process where you're selling yourself. There are customers, there are people looking for employees or whatever, help, right? And you're basically putting yourself forward and saying, here, pick me. And you're pitching yourself and you're trying to sell yourself. You say, like, this is why you should pitch me instead of hiring one of these other bozos. This is why you should pick me. That's the sales process. Congratulations, you're in hell. If you're an introvert or you're somebody that is not into sales, congratulations, you're in living hell. This is the sales process. But nevertheless, that's what you have to do. The good news is that it's a hell of a lot simpler than you think. Okay? All you have to do to pitch yourself is just say what you have, what you know, what you've done. Pretty simple, right? You have to say it in the right way, at the right time, to the right person. That's the catch. Okay? So don't worry. This is temporary. You're going to be fine. If you're tuned into this process, it'll be a short amount of time you have to wait for things to happen. If you're not really tuned into this process, you might have to wait a little longer, but you'll get there. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, we can get into it deeper if you want, but that's what I'd say. Tully Mars says, ballistic, it's tough out there lately. Are you on LinkedIn? Okay. Tully says, regarding my hidden job, it is from a friend who was a friend in my industry. We connected well, and I'm speaking to a hiring manager on Friday. Okay. So it's like a referral, right? That's what you're talking about. And that's fine. It continues. I may have shortchanged myself when talking about money. Can I say something to the extent of, after learning more, I think we are closer to... Never talk about money until you're at the offer stage. That's just the rule. When you go to the store and you have to buy something that you don't know much about, tires, baked beans, building insulation, like I don't know, something you don't know much about, and you go look, okay, there's like all these different brands, there's a pink one, there's a red one, there's a blue one, there's a beige one, one is the color of human vomit. I don't know. Which one do you want, right? You have to pick one. And then what's the first thing you're gonna ask? You're gonna ask to see what you get an answer on. It's gonna be, how much do these things cost, right? Well, the red one is $10 a unit. The blue one is $80 a unit. And the one that looks like human vomit, that's $400 a unit because it's got gold mixed in with the vomit, right? That's what nobody tells you. So based on that, you're probably going to make a decision. You don't know how good any of these products are, but the first kind of thing you can do is say, okay, what do they all cost? What's the price? And then that helps you to pare down. So you can say, okay, well, I don't need gold and I don't need, this thing. So my choice is really between the two cheapest ones. They seem to be adequate as far as I can tell. That one's pretty cheap. I could go one step up and consider that one. So I eliminate the others, right? I eliminate them out of hand. Turns out that the two that I'm considering are both garbage. And the ones that I eliminated, I dismissed out of hand, would have actually been the better choice for me. They would have been the cheapest choice in the long run, because these things that I'm considering, the cheapest ones, they're not going to work out. And I'm going to find myself back here 6 months later having to buy more insulation because all the insulation I bought was crap and I have to replace it all. So in the end, it's costing me more money because I went with the cheap option that's so cheap it doesn't even work, right? So that's why you don't want to talk about price up front, because you don't want to be eliminated out of hand, right? Because they're looking to pare down their choices. So that's the only reason they're asking about, compensation and things like this, is because they're trying to just make a very quick decision on who they're going to keep talking to before they even get to know anyone, right? So that's why you try and delay that. You say like, well, I don't know. You could say a variety of things, market price, negotiable, somewhere in this range, it's too early to say, like whatever. You could say all that stuff to delay that conversation. And the whole point is that you want them to see how awesome you are so that they take that into account when they make a decision, and not just look at you as, a warm body that costs X, right? That's kind of how these things work. This feed keeps moving on me. Where was I here? Okay. Now, Anastasia says, covering up my bases then. Thank you. Now, Anastasia was, the tips for the for nervousness on phone calls. Okay. Yeah, there's no real tips, there's no tricks and shortcuts. I don't really want to do anything, but I want to master something. It's like, put in a little bit of time, learn how it's done, pick up that skill that will change your entire life/career, and you'll be fine. McKinley says, didn't take the offer back then, but opportunity came up again, same location. So I'm trying to get back at that location that hired me back when this is a train conductor. Oh my God. Oh. Say no more. I spent 8 years in the railroad. Some of the nicest, most highly educated, reasonable people I've ever had to work with. So I envy you. Didn't take the offer back then, but opportunity came up. Oh, I see. Okay, so you didn't take the offer back then. Same location. I'm trying to get back to location. Okay. Yeah, well, normally that doesn't help, because if you see what you're now signaling to them, if they remember this, they probably don't, but if they do, all they know about you is that, you're the type of person that we want to include and extend an offer to you, and then you're the type of person that throws it back in our face. That's their only experience with you, right? So unfortunately, that doesn't bode well, but they, in all likelihood, might not remember that you applied. So what I do, I don't know. I mean, it's up to you. It depends on the details. You might not want to play that card and say like, hey, you remember me? You extended an offer to me 6 months ago, or you wanted to talk to me because you felt I had potential. And I totally threw that right back in your face, but let's forget about that for now. Consider me again. Instead of that, just act like it's your first time. So if you're not drawing attention to it, maybe they don't realize that. And then they go, hey, you're actually pretty good. and extend you another offer. Okay, but if there's a way to interact with the decision maker, or if you're dealing with a recruiter, interact with the recruiter as much as you possibly can. Send them an email, send them a phone call, whatever. Say like, hey, does it make sense for me to apply? I have this, that kind of stuff. And then they say yes, and you say, okay, well, I will do it. I'm really excited. Any excuse to sort of have a personal connection with them, to communicate how excited you are about it, how it's a fit, how it's what you're looking for, like stuff like that. Okay. And if you really play your cards right, you could be on the midnight shift with Tuesday, Wednesday as your weekend for the next 5 years. Only if you play your cards right. Tully says, got it. Thanks regarding Zoom. Okay, great. Mehmet says, hi, Bill. I have a job interview on Friday. There will be 2 HR and 1 hiring manager at the same time. Any tips? By HR, what do you mean? You mean recruiter? Because like HR stands for human resources. That's a department. So I guess recruiter. Only in that department would they need 2 HR people there to do 1 interview. Listen, the general rule for interviews, what helps is if you know who's going to be in the interview, look them up on LinkedIn. Okay. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. Okay. You can sign up for free and then connect to these people, look at their profiles, see who they are. Who is the hiring manager? Do they have a university degree in something? Do they have 25 years experience doing a certain thing? Find out who they are. Then you know who you're talking to. So when they ask you a question, you have an idea of what type of person they are, what they probably care about, and then you could speak more to that. Okay, so that's always a good thing to know who you're talking to. Okay, generally speaking, recruiters care about requirements. That's one thing they care about, the posted requirements. The other thing they care about are looking for red flags. So somebody who doesn't particularly enjoy this type of work, they probe for that. Someone who's, going to demand too much money, they probe for that. Someone who has a history of being fired from every job they've ever had, they probe for that. Someone who is wanting this job for the money, but really they want to do something else with their lives, they're probing for that. Right? So like those kinds of red flags, that's what recruiters are tuned into. Hiring managers are different. If you get hired, the hiring manager is going to be your boss. So the hiring manager cares primarily about getting along with you. If they speak to you, do you understand what they're saying? Or do you misinterpret what they're saying? When you say something to them, do you come across as like rude and off-putting? Is that the type of person you would want to work with every day? Probably not. Right? So they care about how agreeable and friendly you are, how easy you are to deal with. If you're going to just come in and not rock the boat, not have a problem with anything, however these people do stuff, you're okay with it, you're pretty easygoing, that's what they like. They do not want someone who's qualified, but's going to come in, who's going to like refuse to work with people and demand that everything be done their way. You know what I mean? They can't communicate properly. You can't tell them anything because they always argue with you. Those are the things that the hiring manager is looking for, right? The assumption is that you're qualified because you're going to an interview. They don't call people for interviews who are not qualified. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you talk to someone about a job who on paper is just not qualified to do the job? That doesn't make any sense. So it's not really about your qualifications. Assuming you're qualified, let's make sure you're going to work out as a person. We can work with you. You're going to be happy here. You're going to be able to follow instructions. You're not going to, harass people or do inappropriate things. You're not going to show up at work with no pants one day. You're not crazy. Things like that. Like that's really the stuff they're looking for in a job interview, right? Is like who you are as a person. Okay, so the hiring manager is going to be tuned into whether they get along with you. So in that job interview, make sure you click with the hiring manager. You know, that's what you've got to do in that interview. And then for the recruiters, they're going to look for red flags and stuff. Just be aware that's what they might be probing for, right? And things like this. Okay? And see if you can research these people ahead of time so you know exactly where they're coming from. And that's probably about all you can do for that. So there you go. Hopefully that makes sense. Greg says, what's the best way to network as class of 2026 graduate student looking for a career in geology? But what's the best way to network through LinkedIn or approaching a nearby facility? That's like saying, well, how does one get a job? It's a pretty huge topic. I can't answer the whole thing here, but try to boil this down to its essentials. Networking is like an umbrella term. There's many, many different types of activity under the umbrella of networking, right? For a start, it's about on one thing within there is like talking to people you already know, seeing if, they're aware of any opportunities or they can give you a recommendation or something like that. That's one thing in this umbrella. Another one is being able to reach out to people, right, that you don't know. So being able to find who could help you and then reach out to them. And then in that kind of umbrella, there's many, many things because you could say many, many things to them. For example, the simplest possible version of that is something called direct outreach. Now, let's do this. I've done this before, but let's do this for everyone here. Okay. This is ChatGPT, in case you didn't know. Now, if you're not doing this, I highly encourage you to do it. Is ChatGPT and the other AI bots the be-all, end-all? No, they're not. But they are a useful tool. Let's explore. Okay, so networking. If you are a graduate from university in 2026 and you don't really know much about professional networking in terms of a career, but you're wanting to get started and you've heard about something called direct outreach, how could one do that? How's that for a general introduction type question? Okay, the reason I'm doing it on ChatGPT live is to show everybody this is not coming from me. This is a well-known thing. You should all be looking into the stuff if you don't know about it already. Okay. So what direct outreach actually means, it's you initiating a professional conversation with someone before or without post a job. Okay, so you want to get hired, right? Now, the reality is that most jobs are not posted. Over 80% of jobs are not posted. So what you see posted out there, like in the world of geology or any other world, what you see there, that's like 15% of all the jobs that are actually available, okay? Decide who you should reach out to, blah, 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 blah. So you can go through this, find them. This is easier than you think. Now, I've done a video that's linked in the description box under this live stream, okay? It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. And it's me walking you through a very specific type of networking where you do direct outreach, okay? And I'm showing you on my desktop computer, you see my desktop, what I'm actually doing and how I'm doing it, okay? So check that out. It's kind of a subset of what I have in this course. If you want the full meal deal, you could check that out. Okay, link also in the description. But networking is like a huge topic. There's many, many things inside there. And just for introverts alone, there's like tons of things you can do. Another video I did 4 months ago, something like that, was called How I Would Get a Job. And it's a 45-minute video. I go through 11 different methods of getting a job. And most of them involved some form of networking. Okay, so, but different forms of networking. And this is still all for introverts. Okay? So step into this world, okay? Start learning. And go from there. Since you're the latest question, there aren't any others waiting. We can spend some more time on this. Give me an example of the types of activity that fall under this umbrella term of networking? Okay, so direct outreach. Okay, so one-to-one messages. We kind of mentioned that already. Informational interviews, or what it says here, informational conversations. That's definitely a thing. I built a consulting business just doing that with CEOs, reaching out to CEOs that I did not know and they didn't know me, and then saying, I'd very much like to speak with you. Would you be able to set up a meeting? And they said, sure. And then I went and talked to them, and then a lot of those people ended up being my consulting clients. Warm introductions. So this is when someone opens a door for you. Okay. Maintaining weak ties, hugely underrated. So this is, once again, checking in with people that you already know, maybe previous friends, previous, classmates, previous coworkers, like this kind of thing, right? Being visible in professional spaces. So you could either go to industry events and, things like that, or if you're more extroverted, or if you're more introverted, you can do that stuff virtually online. You go where all the geologists go to hang out, right? That kind of thing. Maybe there's an industry publication, Geology Today, Geology World, new types of strata and rocks and fossils and whatever. And then you connect with that publication, and say, could I come down? Could you give me a tour? Could I be involved in some way? Stuff like that. And next thing you know, people start to know of you, right, in that world. Leveraging institutional connections. So, if you have professors at school or whatever, there might be some potential there. Following up after interviews and applications. So that's, I guess, one part of networking. Helping others. Now, this is the thing. There's a little known truth here, at least for little known among people that don't do networking, and that is that if you reach out to somebody and say, I need you to do this for me, you ask them for something. Can you do all this work to help me? Right? In what way is that different from spam? If you get a spam email, it's from someone you don't know, and they're basically saying, we need you to go and do this now, right? You need to go buy this product, or you need to sit here and learn all about this thing I'm selling, right? Do you entertain those kind of requests? No, you probably just, delete and ban or block sender, right? But if somebody contacts you and says, I can help you in this way, are you interested? Like, here's something I'm offering. This would be something useful to you. Is that of interest to you? Do you want to maybe talk about it? And there's a bit more to it. Like, this is why I'm doing it, and this is, how it makes sense. Stuff like you tend to get a much better response, right? If you're reaching out to people you don't know. If they're not getting anything out of it, but you're demanding that they do something for you, usually you don't get a lot of responses to that. But if you're offering something, right, then you get a hell of a lot better response, right? Okay, I think we were kind of towards the end of this, but anyway, networking, all it is it's just people talking to other people. That's all it is. So any activity that involves that falls under that umbrella of networking. So start learning. You could start off with ChatGPT, if for want of a starting point. I've got lots of videos on networking. A huge part of this course is on the networking component. That's the secret weapon. Even for introverts, there's a lot of stuff that make introverts like amazing at this. So check it out. The more you learn, the further you'll go. See, I was a poet and I wasn't even aware. Yeah, so that's the end of the questions. While we're waiting, everybody check out this course that I've mentioned a couple of times. It's like there's two of me, right? It's great. Link in the description box below, and I've also linked a video that describes the course so you can see exactly how it works, exactly what you get. It's very transparent, very popular course. Check it out. Link in the description box below. And if that's the kind of thing you're into, also check out this. This is the other big course I have that's probably relevant to people here, which is if you want to learn higher level communication skills, everything I learned about communication skills going from a supervisor when I started out to a CEO when I sort of ended up, everything I learned along the way about communication skills, I put into this course. So check that out if you're interested in learning that. It can really open doors for your career in a variety of different ways. There's a link in the description box under this live stream for that. And also, I've made a video about this course also, describing how it works and what you get. And that's also linked below too. So check it out. Two pretty popular courses. Greg says, thanks. I appreciate the tutorial of understanding the networking world. I might have reflect on some previous videos of yours. Yeah, and listen, just follow this pattern, like learn some principles, right? And then go out and apply them. So for example, if you were to start by checking out the video I mentioned earlier called How Successful People Get Jobs, that's linked in the description box below this video. If you watch that video, you can then try and go out and do that stuff, right? You learn by doing also, like that's part of it. It's not the be all end all. It's good to learn the theory about how stuff works first, but then when you learn some theory, then go out and apply it a little bit, get some hard experience, right? Don't just rely on like what people tell you. Rely on the evidence of your own experience. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can tell you something can't be done if you've just done it. You know what I'm saying? I've had people tell me that my whole career. Oh, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. It's like, well, you're wrong, and I've just done it. So you can't tell me it can't be done. You know? I mean, I understand you think it can't be done, but you're wrong. You know? So that's how this stuff kind of works. There's a time to listen to advice from me or from anyone else, and then there's a time to actually go out and start doing something and learning that way too. And usually a combination of the two is what's going to get you where you want to go. Whew, that's a lot of talking. There's 21 people here. Thank you for being here. 18 people now. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. If you have anything that you're wondering about or that you're struggling with, let me know. I will be live in just over 45 minutes. I have a second live stream scheduled today that's going to start in just over 45 minutes called Honest HR Nitrous. It's just more of the same. Traditionally, this live stream is more for talking about the theory, how you answer job interview questions and stuff. Honest HR Nitrous is about like talking about what's going on out there, the nitty gritty reality of job search, not the theory of how it should work, but what's actually going on. So join me for that if you are interested. But I'm available to stay for a little bit longer if there are other questions. Let's do some more of this. We can start off with the thing that shocks everybody. That's what I always start off with. Okay, of all the jobs that are available right now to everybody, okay, that like anyone could get, how many of them are actually posted? What's the percentage of the jobs that are posted versus the jobs that exist that you could get, but they're not posted? Oh, we got one of these poll things. I really don't care. Can we skip this? Whatever. How do you select it? Like that? God, I hate this. They are using me as a guinea pig, ladies and gentlemen. Is there a, oh, you have to click one of those. Well, this one's longer, so whatever. Okay, so what was the answer? Okay. 20 to 30% of jobs are publicly posted. 70 to 80% exist but are not posted. So that alone should be eye-opening, right? Now, you could read all about it. You could do this yourself and just read all about, why this is done. Okay. Okay, now, next question. For the jobs that are posted, my assumption is that they get a lot more applicants. There's a lot more people competing for those jobs than there are people competing for the ones that are not posted. So do we know what's the ratio between people competing for the posted jobs versus people competing for the hidden jobs? Okay. Did that just go into a void? I think it's thinking about it. Okay, let's try that again. I don't know what the hell happened there. This is live, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you know it's live. Okay, so as I was saying, for the jobs that are posted publicly, I'm assuming they get more people competing for those jobs than the jobs that are not posted publicly. So do we know anything about how much competition there is for the posted jobs versus how much competition there is for the hidden jobs? Okay, so here you go. Posted jobs typically attract 100 to 500 plus applicants. Okay? I think most people applying for jobs, you probably know that already. Unposted, the hidden jobs, often involve 1 to 10 serious contenders, sometimes just one. Do you like those odds? You could be that one person. This is why I recommend look in the hidden job market. Go after the jobs that are not posted. Okay, and if you're wondering how the hell do I do that, right? In one word, it's networking. But if you're an introvert, you can kick ass at this. You can do it virtually with social media, things like LinkedIn, things like Google Maps. That's the majority of the work. Okay? The only time you have to talk to another human being, either on the phone or in person, is when they're really interested in you and they want to talk to you for this job, right? That's the way this stuff works. So that's what you can do. So check it out. Now, if you have further follow-up questions for this stuff, you could go on ChatGPT yourself. You could learn all you can about it. And then if you have specific questions about this, come back here and we'll talk about it, because I've been in this world for a couple of decades. And the goal is, if people knew about this, job search would be a lot easier for a lot of people. Still no new questions. Yeah, get in the chat. Let me know what you're wondering, what you're struggling with. In the meantime, okay, so now that we know how many jobs are not posted, and we also know how comparatively little competition there is for those jobs, what are the methods that people use to get those jobs? In order of, not popularity, but in order of ease of being able to do, especially, let's say, if you're an introvert. Okay, so you guys can see, I mean, this is not coming from me. This is out in the world. Now, do your own research and verify the stuff. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. So warm introductions, easiest, lowest stress. Someone introduces you to someone else. Yeah, but I mean, that's not great for introverts because you don't have a huge network to begin with. Asynchronous direct outreach, email, LinkedIn message. Personally, I would not do email. Email sucks. But LinkedIn message, if you know what you're doing, you can unlock everything with that. You write once, they respond later. Okay, so that's like sending out like templates and things. It's giving you some stuff here, some examples. I wouldn't send out anything this long. It would just be a very short thing, right? And I would do it in a couple of stages. First, you get people to connect with you on LinkedIn. Then of those people, you then go one step further and then ask for something. Informational conversation, still low pressure. This can be extremely productive. It's just that it's more labor intensive. You wouldn't do this for everybody. With direct outreach, you can go to hundreds and hundreds of targets in like a day. You send out a template message, just like you're applying for jobs with a one-click, resume kind of thing, right? Informational interviews, this is where you're like focusing on one person and you're going to go down there and meet them and all this kind of stuff. Like they invite you in. They say, yeah, certainly I'd like to talk to you. Let's do this. And then you go down there and meet with them. It's still labor intensive, right? So, but it is something that you can do. It's more of a quality thing rather than a quantity. Okay. Internal referrals. Well, that's if, you have people where you work, right? Where you previously worked, that they have opportunities there and stuff like that. Once again, this would not be my first choice because it's contingent upon you being connected to people. This is more for introverts. Recruiter relationships, yeah, I wouldn't count on that. Events and in-person networking, hardest for introverts. Yeah, you can do this. I mean, there's introverts and then there's introverts. If you can go to an event, you go down to the equivalent of like Comic Con, but for like a specific industry, the plumbing industry or the geology industry, you know what I mean? That's where all the people that can help you are, right? They're all there in one room, one big room. You go down there and you meet with it. It's like, hey, you look at their little booth or whatever, what's this? Wow, that's awesome. And then you give them your card or your resume or whatever. So anyway, the big one for me is direct outreach, wherever that was, I guess here. That's really productive over LinkedIn if you know what you're doing. And informational interviews are extremely productive, but it's not a mass communication thing. It's one-to-one, right? So you got some stuff in there. I highly recommend people bone up on this stuff. And then jump right in, and you'll be amazed what doors you can open for yourself. Anyway, we got 18 people here. I'm probably going to sign off in a moment, but check out my courses. The main one, of course, is this thing right here, my Get Hired course. Check that out in the link in the description below. And also, where is it? This one here. Write Like a Professional. That's to help you improve your communication skills. Get high-level communication skills. If you have a corporate career and you tack on communication skills, that can really help you get promoted. It'll help you be seen as a contender to move upwards if that's what you're looking for. Anyway, I think I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you to everybody who participated. You guys are awesome. I'll be back in just over 40 minutes live again on this channel. So if you have any other questions or whatever, come back and we can get into it. Until then, take care of yourselves and I will see you soon. Best of luck.